Hello there, folks. It's Nerdy John here, and today I have another versus video for you. Today it's Cars from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure versus Alex Mercer from the Prototype video game series. What's important to know about Alex Mercer is that he's pure biomass, meaning he can turn his body into anything he wants it to be, whether it be a piece of clothing, a human, or he can turn his arm into a blade. Speaking of that blade, Mercer can turn his arm into a blade, and it's a pretty effective weapon. It's mainly used for crowd control, but it's definitely an effective weapon. Then we have his claws, which he uses to pounce on his enemies, and he can attack faster with the claws than he could the sword. And he also has what are called hammer fist. These are basically him putting large amount of biomass into his fist, allowing him to create shockwaves with them, and I believe also he can create spikes out of the ground to attack enemies along with the shockwaves. We also have his whip, which is mainly used to grab enemies from long distances and pulling them away. They also are great tools to use against aerial combat, since while Mercer can glide, he can't exactly fly, is what I'm saying. He potentially could with the way his biomass mutation works, but we've never seen that in game or in cutscene. So more than likely he can just glide. He also has thermal vision, which allows him to detect heat signatures. He also has an infected vision, which allows him to see who has the black light virus. And then he also has a hunter's sense, which allows him to pick out his targets out of a crowd. Also, it should be noted that Mercer has insane regeneration abilities. A nuke was dropped, well, almost dropped on New York. He managed to get the bomb far away enough to where it wouldn't damage the city, but he still got hit by the blast. He was a puddle of blood, and just by consuming 3 birds, I believe it was 3 birds, he was able to regenerate fully. That is an insane healing factor. Oh, and I probably forgot to mention this, so I'll just say it now. Mercer consumes people and making them and converting them into biomass for himself. So anything that the person he knew, anything that the person he consumed knew, he now knows. So that's potentially very broken. He also has the ability to give other people the virus. This allowed him to create an entire army of followers in the second game, where he was the main villain. And one more thing I should mention before we get into Cars' abilities. Mercer is super fast and agile. He's able to dodge many attacks and it can at least outrun a car, and his stamina, it's pretty up there, if not unlimited. He has an armored form, which basically hardens his entire body. However, this limits his mobility, so it's kind of a trade off. Now, let's talk about the ultimate life form from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Cars. Now, Cars' abilities are similar to Alex's, but on a slightly minor scale. Cars can't manipulate his body in like in the sense of biomass. He can still manipulate his body to insane degrees. Um, he can turn his body into anything he wants as long as it was a life form at some point. Like he can turn his hand into a flower and then turn that flower into a squirrel, and that squirrel will detach from his hand and attack you. That's how he works. He can also fly by turning his arms into wings, and then he can shoot feathers, I believe. Yeah, he can shoot the feathers, and then they can turn into animals to kill you. It's insane. He also has an IQ of 400 and is known for analyzing his opponents. Also, Cars has bone blades, and they can basically cut through anything. Anything at all. It's insane. Um, Basically, how they work is that, like, it acts like a chainsaw. Basically, like they're little teeth on the edges of the blade, and they spin rapidly, allowing him to cut through anything he wants. I'm not kidding. It's kind of insane how it works. Also, another thing to mention is that cars can use an ability called the ripple effect. Basically, what ripple energy is, it's basically sun energy that humans use to combat the undead. Normally, when a human uses the ripple energy or the ripple technique against another human, it stings, or at worst, it mildly hurts them. Cars was able to use this technique and amplify it to such a degree that it melt his opponent's kneecaps. So that is a way to combat Mercer's regeneration. Um, Cars was able to survive the inside of a volcano, and the only way that the Cars was defeated was when he was tricked into outer space. He couldn't move, so he had to stop thinking. For all intents and purposes, he killed himself. And I forgot to mention this during Alex's section, but the only way Alex was able to die was when James Heller killed him, who basically had the same abilities that he did. So it took another person like Alex to kill him. This is how insane these guys are. It's either they killed themselves or they needed to fight someone with the exact same abilities, where it could have gone either way. That's how broken they are. Now, before we get into the official fight, I should also mention that Cars can sense air movement, so he can predict the moves you're going to make and counteract them. Now, on with the fight. I actually have a little bit of scenario for this one. Okay, so Cars somehow manages to come back to Earth, and basically he senses something going on in New York. So he goes to New York. Naturally, because of his appearance, everyone is rather taken back by his appearance. Some Black Watch soldiers go and try to interrogate him. He kills them, and then chaos ensues. Now, I'm sure Alex would take notice of this and would try to investigate. Cars and him would eventually break into a fight, and because these guys don't need to eat or sleep, their fight would last forever, and I'm sure they would just leave New York a complete mess. I can imagine them just casually cutting down buildings while they fight. It would be insane. And due to their regeneration abilities, who knows when it would end? Because we never seen cars officially blah blah. Sorry. We've seen the limits of Mercer's. He's able to take a nuke, and haven't really seen the full extent of Cars's. He was able to be hurt by the Redstone of Asia, which is a MacGuffin item in the JoJo universe, which isn't something that Mercer would have access to. Now, there's only two scenarios I can see here. Either Mercer becomes cocky and thinks by giving Cars the virus, he could control him somehow. And then Cars would get the virus, and then he just amplifies the virus's abilities to its fullest and manages to consume Mercer and win. Or this ends up being a draw, and Cars and Mercer go their separate ways, realizing they're not able to kill each other. So, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any other suggestions for a versus discussion, let me know in the comments below. This is Nerdy signing out. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend.